Welcome to this week's edition of Talk Back. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Nesbit, and with me as always is Justin Gay, your host and director of content. We've got a huge episode this week in Talkworthy Segment 1. It's all NFL and it's all Indianapolis Colts. One of the biggest news stories we've seen out of the NFL in years, and most certainly since we've been doing this podcast. Then in Segment 2, we'll cover the NFC divisional previews. Last week we did the AFC. We talked about those Indianapolis Colts and what it might mean if Andrew Luck played or didn't play based on his injury. Well, we'll get to that, but we've also got to cover this NFC because there's a lot of good teams out in that conference. Who do we think will win the overs and unders for their respective divisions? And then in overtime, we've got a big story out of the NBA. We've got all of that and more on this edition of Talk Back. Are you ready for a show that talks sports from the fans' point of view?
We've seen Michael Jordan score 37 points a game in his era. How many could he score in today's NBA?
There's not a player out there who I'd rather have than LeBron James.
Are you ready for a show that isn't afraid to challenge anyone when it comes to sports? If Adam Silver really wanted to fix tanking in the NBA, he would stop rewarding teams by giving them the best chance to win the draft lottery.
I mean, how many times will Roger Goodell drop the ball on handling domestic violence in the NFL?
Look, athletes have every right to talk politics, but if the fans stop tuning in, that's their right.
Then you're ready for Talk Back, a podcast where two fans debate the media narrative and discuss the world of sports as we see it.
Welcome to the show. All right, we're back for episode 303. I joke all the time on the show. Sometimes sports just gives to the directors of content, as Eric likes to point out, and the teaser there at the beginning of the show or the show opener that I'm the director of content. I didn't have to do a lot this week, Eric, because this story sort of fell in our lap on Saturday night, and we were trying to figure out how we could get to the mics quick enough to be able to talk about it, but this story still has some legs to it, as it's definitely affected the Indianapolis Colts. It's dropped their win total from about 9.5 to 10, depending on what book you were looking at, to 7.5. So let me ask you, Eric, let's just jump right into it. Saturday night, the Andrew Luck retirement tweets, they came fast and furious. This was a shocker, as you said there in the opener. But when was the last time you were this shocked with a story? Was it the Mike Vick and the dog fighting? Was it even back to Michael Jordan retiring, the whole Magic Johnson HIV press conference? Where did this sort of strike you at?
That's a fantastic question because as a sports fan, there are certainly times that something happened that was so big, you just can't forget it. And I look at things like Tiger Woods coming out where he had that car accident at the end of his driveway, right?
Yeah, that's another good one.
You know, that's one that I remember. Or you hit it there with Michael Jordan's retirement and stories that just seem to be bigger than the sport itself. And I think this past week we had one of those stories. It took me by surprise. I mean, I can understand a little bit, and I know we want to talk about that, but I can understand a little bit about the reaction from a fan when your guy, your star quarterback, it hits the news that he is retiring. And I think that is just so much of a shocker to the system right before a season when you have a quarterback that's 29 years old, been in the league 6 years, and you're looking at what, you know, the future might be. I just don't think this was on anybody's mind in that stadium. Maybe a few people up in the senior leadership of Indianapolis. But outside of that, Justin, I don't think anybody saw this coming.
If it was on their minds, and it's been reported that Luck had brought this up and the front office knew this was going on, but they had kept it very, very quiet and close to the vest throughout this process. And then for some reason, Saturday night, they decided to just go ahead and release the news versus just waiting for the next day where it's a Sunday and maybe it's not quite as shocking versus Saturday night when all these preseason games are on and people are on their phones and following this stuff. So, yeah, it was shocking. I definitely thought about the Tiger Woods, especially how that Tiger story initially broke, that he was involved in some car accident and you immediately start thinking, well, how bad? Is it fatal? How seriously injured is it? And then the whole story sort of twists and turns. And then I also thought about something kind of off the beaten path that most fans won't. A lot of our fans may, though, and that was Carl Edwards retiring right after he had been at Homestead in the championship 4 and had come up just short. And you were thinking, like, this guy's in the prime of his career. He's in Gibbs equipment now. He's going to be back here again. And then he just walks away from the sport.
Yeah.
A lot of people won't look at that. But when you're talking about guys in their prime just walking away, it's just a short list. Even Calvin Johnson was, 31, I think, at the time. And he had kind of even hinted about that just because he was so beaten down with the Lions. You think of Barry Sanders. I mean, the Lions run off everybody. I think I can't believe they've kept Stafford this long. As the beating he takes, you think that they're trying to get rid of him as well. But it was a shocking story. And it was a story that was just tailor-made for Twitter, because I think you got to see the good of Twitter and the reason why it should be banished from the face of the earth all within an hour, because you got all of the NFL insiders tweeting about this. You got the story in real time. You're kind of getting some of the facts come in. You're getting stories from fans that are there at the stadium. And then it just turned into like a war. You couldn't tweet anything without someone having a comment about something you were saying. Writers are fighting with each other on Twitter. And then that became the story. And the whole Andrew Luck situation kind of got pushed to the side. People were talking about Doug Gottlieb's tweet and Dan Dockage. And then Troy Aikman comes after Gottlieb. And all these guys are attacking each other because obviously now the way society is, Eric, you can't have an opinion, because if your opinion pisses off anybody, then you're going to get attacked. And then Twitter has become the basketball court in a playground that just feeds itself online for millions to see. It's everybody is waiting for the Harden ankle break moment that just embarrasses somebody, and then everybody piles on. That's what Twitter is. It's, oh, you need a body bag for this guy, or this guy got savagely beaten. Oh, he got burned so bad. It's like, guys, it's just words. That's all. Somebody didn't go out and like take a club to someone's head. They made some remark that who knows if they have a writer or somebody else that's even helping them. That's all Twitter has become at this moment, this attacking style of society. And this story just kind of pulled it out of both sides. And that's what I saw on Saturday night, Eric. It was kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, total mob mentality, isn't it? And we see that in sports and politics. And I had to actually step back for a moment. I mean, I'm not an Indianapolis Colts fan, but as a sports fan, and we talk a lot on this show about debating the narrative of the media, I had to step back for a moment and think, because my initial reaction to it was actually kind of similar to the Colts fans. I wouldn't go as far as booing Andrew Luck off the field at a preseason game, but my initial reaction was, holy crap, like, how is he going to do them like that? How's he just going to walk away 2 weeks before the season? Thankfully, I didn't write anything on Twitter. I actually stayed calm and decided to take it all in for 24 to 48 hours. And I'm glad I did, because then you listen to Andrew Luck's press conference, which went on almost 25 minutes after that game late on a Saturday night. And I think that impacted me. So then you have the initial reaction that I would have had. Then I have a separate reaction based on actually hearing from Andrew Luck himself. And then over the next 24 to 48 hours, I have even more reactions based on other NFL players, based on the additional input of the injuries that Andrew Luck is dealing with and has been dealing with. You look at his decision with his family and how it's impacted his personal life. And you roll up all of these things together, and you then have to say it's more than just booing him off the field on Saturday night. It's a human being who's making a decision for his own profession, and he has the right to do that based on the fact that we all do. I mean, if someone, a greeter at Walmart, wanted to quit tomorrow, they can do that. They can retire, they can walk away. And that's, the customers won't stand at the front door of Walmart booing them on the way out, I don't think. But I understand where each segment of time that goes by in this process, people are going to have a gut visceral reaction. So let's talk about each of those things, because I think you made a fantastic point about the Twitter part of it. And that's where I actually did read like the Gottlieb thing and the Aikman thing and other players. And, you see what T.Y. Hilton's saying, see what people on his own team are saying. And you kind of read through those, and it helps you to formalize an opinion. So let's take it step by step, because I think that's what this first segment needs to be. It's going to be all Andrew Luck, guys. I mean, you're going to have to deal with that. This is the biggest story of the 3 years that we've been podcasting, and certainly the biggest story of this week. So the NFL is upon us. Andrew Luck is retiring. The Colts now have to go with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. That changes our over-under from last week, I believe. It changes the AFC South for sure. But Justin, he's standing there on the sideline, and the news breaks during the game that he's retiring. That is a bit odd, right? I mean, that is quite odd.
Yeah.
That the timing of it. So if I'm a fan and I'm sitting in that stadium, I might have maybe not booed him, but I might have had at least a gut reaction of what in the hell is going on?
How could you not? My brother and I were talking about that after the game, and he's a Skins fan. And I'm like, imagine being in the stadium. You're standing there looking at Haskins, who you think is going to be your future quarterback. And all of a sudden you look down at your phone and you see a text from me that goes, check Twitter, Haskins just retired. And you're going to be like, no way. Are you kidding me? Like, why would he do that?
Right.
It'd be the same for you.
Sam Darnold retires. Carson Wentz retires.
Say you're in Philly to watch LeBron in a preseason game, and he's not dressed, and you're sitting there thinking about, what the season could be for the Lakers and LeBron and the chasing Jordan and this and that. And then all of a sudden I text you and say, LeBron, Woj just announced he's retiring. Like, your reaction is going to be shock.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're going to be like, you just got hit out of nowhere with it. And I thought you had the best analogy with your wife. And I'll let you talk about it. If you guys are out and you're shopping, what she does, how your reaction's going to be.
Yeah, I can't imagine, being out shopping for, let's say furniture to fill the house, and she says she wants a divorce, and then turns around and says, but do you think this chair will look good in the living room? Like you're not going to know how to react. You're going to be like, well, wait a minute. Like, are we playing the game or are we retiring? What are we doing here?
Yeah. And my issue wasn't with the fans, because this isn't North Korea. Okay. Like, people can have different reactions. So if people want to pay the money and these teams want to charge, even for a preseason game, you're getting charged the same amount as you are a regular season game if you're a season ticket holder. You're still going to pay parking. You're still going to pay all those things. And you're watching your quarterback down on the field that you think, well, is he going to be there week one? He's got this ankle or calf injury we can't get much on. But, we've got a really good team. We've got a chance to make some noise here in the AFC. Oh, he's retiring. Okay. You're going to have a reaction. So unless these owners want to not charge fans any money for their ticket or their parking, and then they want to crowd control them, and if you boo, they'll throw you out. And if the players want to take a giant pay cut, and then the crowd will sit in there and cheer for everything they do, and they'll never boo them, and they get the exact reactions they want, that's fine. Go that route. But if not, people are going to have human emotions and reactions when things like this happen.
Yeah.
The people on Twitter, Eric, having these idiotic, asinine outbursts are doing the same thing that they're hit. It's just so hypocritical. We talk about it all the time with the media. It's like, well, I'm going to get on Twitter and just blast somebody, and I'm going to blast these fans for booing. Well, you're having the same emotional reaction as these fans are. You're no better than who you're criticizing. That's the shocking part of this, Eric. I had a much greater issue with how Adam Schefter was able to get this story, who leaked it to him. Not that he released it, because that's his job. People saying that he shouldn't have released it, that's someone being a complete idiot and not understanding what his job is. His job is to break news.
Yeah, because if he sits on that, someone else breaks it an hour later, and then it's no longer his story.
Yeah, someone else is going to break it. So my issue was with, okay, who leaked this to Schefter? Was it Irsay? Was it Ballard? Are these guys trying to leak the story to make Luck talk about it in that moment to give the Colts maximum time to get over this? And it just happened to be that they threw him under the bus, and they never thought the crowd reaction would be that way. They didn't think that far through. I don't know, Eric. I felt that was the biggest injustice to Luck. It wasn't the fans booing to me. I think if he comes back there, they would cheer him off the field, given time to process this and understand it. But I had much bigger issue with how this story got to Schefter than the fans.
Yeah, you actually would see on Twitter 2 or 3 days later, a lot of the fans kind of turning back around and saying, you know what, we really appreciate everything you did for us. You gave it your all. You battled these injuries. And it was a list of injuries now. It's not just little nicks and things here and there. I mean, this is 6 years of rehab and everything else. So I totally get where Andrew Luck is coming from, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But I got to agree with you, Justin. I think if I were in that stadium, not knowing anything else and not having time to process this and looking down on the sidelines, seeing Andrew Luck actually standing